The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Ambassador Velnara stood at the center of the circular room, her blue skin pale with fear. Around her, representatives from 800 civilizations waited. The silence felt heavy, like something pressing down on everyone's chest. 17 worlds, Velnara said, her voice shaking. 17 civilized worlds have fallen in the past 30 days. The Catharn swarm does not stop. They do not negotiate. They only consume and expand. A murmur ran through the chamber. Everyone knew the truth, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. The holographic display behind Velnara showed the galaxy map. Red zones marked Catharn territory. Half the galaxy glowed red now. It had been blue just 2 years ago. Our fleets cannot stop them, continued Velnara. She pressed a button and battle footage appeared. Ships exploded in silence. Stations crumbled like paper. We use energy weapons. They adapt in hours. We use kinetic weapons. They adapt in days. We use biological weapons. They consume them and become stronger. An elderly ambassador from the Krell Federation stood up. His scales rattled with age. What are our casualties? Velnara closed her eyes. 90%. In every engagement, we lose 90% of our forces. The Catharn lose 30% and simply grow more. The chamber erupted. Voices rose in panic. Some species began crying. Others argued loudly. The council speaker banged his staff 3 times, but the noise continued. Our war minds have calculated the outcome. Velnara shouted over the chaos. The room fell silent again. If nothing changes, the Catharn will reach our core worlds within 2 standard years. Total extinction will follow within 5 years. Then we evacuate, someone suggested. We flee to the outer rim. And go where? Velnara asked. The Catharn breed faster than we can run. They spread like a plague. There is nowhere to hide. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The weight of extinction settled over them all. Then Velnara straightened her back. There is one option. One option we have refused to consider for 500 years. The council speaker leaned forward. You cannot mean the quarantine of soul, Velnara said firmly. We must break it. We must contact the humans. The reaction was immediate. Half the council began shouting no. The other half sat in stunned silence. The holographic display changed, showing an old star system surrounded by a glowing barrier. Earth, the third planet, shone blue and green. The humans were quarantined for a reason, the Krell ambassador said. They are dangerous, unstable. They wage war on themselves constantly. They invent new ways to kill with every generation. Exactly, Velnara replied. We need that now. We need their violence, their creativity and destruction, their willingness to die for a cause. She brought up old records from humanity's first contact 500 years ago. The council watched footage of human history. Wars that spanned continents, weapons that split atoms, soldiers charging into certain death while screaming, civilians fighting with bare hands when weapons ran out. They bombed their own cities, someone whispered in horror. They fought wars that killed millions of their own kind, another added. They created weapons that could destroy their entire world, then aimed them at each other, a third voice said. Yes, Velnara agreed. They did all of that, and they survived it. They grew beyond it, but the capacity for such violence remains in them. That is why we quarantined them. We feared what they might become if they reached the stars. The council speaker stood slowly. His form shimmered with distress. 500 years ago, we voted to contain humanity. We decided they were too dangerous to join galactic civilization. We watched them from afar and thanked our ancestors that they stayed on their world. Now you ask us to unleash them? I ask us to survive, Velnara said. The Catharn cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be bargained with. They can only be fought, and we have forgotten how to truly fight. We have had peace for 3,000 years. Humans have never stopped preparing for war. The debate lasted for hours. Arguments flew back and forth. Some called it madness. Others called it the only hope. The voting process began at midnight Standard Galactic Time. One by one, the civilizations cast their votes. The tally appeared on the main display. Yes. No. Abstain. The numbers climbed slowly. Velnara watched, her heart pounding. She had spent weeks convincing other ambassadors in private. She had shared classified reports about the Catharn's advancement. She had shown them projections of their own worlds burning. Finally, the count finished. 847 civilizations voted yes. 3 voted no. 12 abstained. The council speaker's voice was heavy. The motion passes. We will break the quarantine of Sol. We will contact the humans. May the ancestors forgive us for what we are about to do. Velnara nodded to her aide, who operated a control panel. Somewhere in the deep archives, an ancient beacon activated. It had been built 500 years ago for this exact purpose. A failsafe. A last resort. The beacon signal cut through the quarantine field like a knife through cloth. It traveled across space at faster than light speeds, heading toward a small blue world that had no idea it was being watched. The signal carried a message in mathematics, the universal language. A plea for help, coordinates, technology specifications for a wormhole generator. As the signal raced toward Earth, Velnara stood alone in the empty council chamber. She looked at the galaxy map, at the spreading red tide of the Catharn. Then she looked at the small yellow star called Sol. We were right to fear them, she whispered to the empty room. But now we need what we fear. May they be our salvation and not our doom. The beacon's light traveled on through the darkness, carrying hope and terror in equal measure. The signal reached Earth on a Tuesday morning. Every radio telescope on the planet detected it at the same moment. The pattern was unmistakable. Mathematical sequences, prime numbers, geometric shapes. It was artificial. It was intelligent. And it was calling. Dr. Sarah Chen was drinking her third coffee of the day when her computer started screaming alerts. She nearly dropped the cup as data flooded her screen. She worked at the SETI Institute in California, and for 20 years she had listened to the stars. Now finally the stars were answering back. Oh my God, she whispered. Her hands shook as she began recording everything. Oh my God, this is real. Within an hour, every major government knew. Emergency meetings began in Washington, Beijing, Moscow, Brussels, and dozens of other capitals. The military went on high alert. Scientists scrambled to analyze the data. Religious leaders tried to calm their followers. The internet exploded with speculation. Dr. Chen worked for 3 days straight, barely sleeping. The message was complex but not impossible. Mathematics was indeed the universal language. Slowly, she decoded it piece by piece. On the 4th day, she stood before a secret meeting of world leaders via video conference. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. Her voice was hoarse, but her translation was clear. They're asking for help, she said simply. Someone out there is dying. An entire galaxy is being destroyed by something called the Catharn Swarm. They need warriors. They need soldiers. They need... She paused, looking at her notes in disbelief. They need us. How do they even know about us? Asked the American president. Dr. Chen pulled up more data. They've been watching us. For at least 500 years. There's a field around our solar system. An artificial barrier. We've been quarantined like a disease. The room fell silent. The implications sank in slowly. They locked us in, said the Chinese premier. Because they were afraid of us? Yes, Dr. Chen confirmed. The message includes historical records. They watched our wars, our weapons, our capacity for violence. They decided we were too dangerous to meet. But now they're desperate enough to break their own quarantine. And they think we can help them? Asked the Russian president. They think we can do what they cannot, Dr. Chen replied. Fight without rules. Fight without mercy. Win at any cost. The debate began immediately. Some leaders argued it was a trick. Others said it was humanity's destiny. Some called it a trap. Others called it an opportunity. Religious leaders debated whether these aliens had souls. Military commanders asked about weapons and tactics. The arguing went on for 2 weeks. During that time, more of the message was decoded. It included technical specifications, instructions for building a wormhole generator, technology that could fold space and let ships travel between stars instantly. The math was verified by hundreds of scientists. It was real. It would work. On day 15, Dr. Chen revealed the final part of the message, a map of the galaxy. Half of it glowed red, marked as Catharn territory. A note explained that the red zones were expanding. Billions of people were dying. Entire civilizations were being erased. If we do nothing, Dr. Chen told the assembly, an entire galaxy dies. Trillions of lives, thousands of species, and maybe, someday the Catharn will figure out how to break the quarantine from the outside. Then they'll come here. The vote was called. The United Nations held an emergency session. For the first time in history, nearly every nation agreed on something. The resolution passed with 98% approval. Humanity would respond. The Terran Expeditionary Fleet was assembled in 6 months. It was a miracle of international cooperation. China provided manufacturing. America provided spacecraft technology. Russia provided weapon systems. Europe provided computers and AI. India provided life support systems. Every nation contributed something. 50 ships were built in orbit. They were not beautiful. They were not elegant. They were functional and deadly. Each one carried nuclear missiles, kinetic weapons, and experimental technology that had been banned by international treaty. The treaties didn't apply beyond the solar system. Commander Marcus Webb was chosen to lead the fleet. He was 52 years old, a veteran of 3 wars on Earth. He had a reputation for winning impossible battles through unconventional tactics. Some called him brilliant. Others called him reckless. Everyone agreed he got results. On the day of departure, the fleet gathered near Mars. Families watched from Earth on live television. The whole world held its breath. Dr. Chen was aboard the flagship, the Tufts Resolution. She would serve as chief xenolinguist and first contact specialist. She stood on the bridge next to Commander Webb as the final countdown began. "Are you scared?" she asked him. Webb looked at the stars ahead. Terrified. "We have no idea what we're flying into. We might all die in the first hour." "Then why go?" He smiled grimly. "Because somebody asked for help. And because I'm curious what made them scared enough to call us." The wormhole generators activated. Space twisted and tore in front of the fleet. A tunnel of light opened, leading to somewhere impossibly far away. "All ships," Webb said calmly over the fleet channel. "This is it. Humanity's first steps into a larger universe. Let's show them what we're made of." The 50 ships moved forward into the wormhole. One by one they vanished, leaving the solar system behind. On the Sivrine homeworld, Ambassador Velnara stood in her private chamber. She watched the sensors that monitored the quarantine field. The moment the human ships passed through, alarms began wailing. The field registered the breach. The humans were coming. Velnara had spent months preparing for this. She had read every record about humanity. She had watched their wars and studied their strategies. She knew what was coming. "Ancestors, forgive us," she whispered to the empty room. "We have unleashed something we cannot control. But perhaps that is exactly what we need." She pressed a button. A message went out to the Council Defense Fleet near the border worlds. "The humans are coming. Be prepared. Do not provoke them. Do not restrict them. Let them see what we face. Then step back and watch what happens when you corner the most dangerous species in the galaxy and give them a target." Velnara looked at her reflection in the window. She barely recognized herself anymore. 500 years of fear, and she had been the one to break it. "Come quickly, humans," she said softly. "We are dying. Show us how to fight back, and may the galaxy survive what comes next." The human fleet emerged from the wormhole, near a planet called Draxus 7th. Commander Webb's first view of alien space was of fire and death. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered on the bridge. A massive battle station orbited the planet below. It was 3 times the size of any human city. Ships surrounded it, thousands of them. Half were elegant vessels with smooth hulls that glowed with soft light. Those were the Council forces. The other half looked like living crystals, sharp and jagged, reflecting starlight in rainbow patterns. Those were the Catharn. "All ships hold position," Webb ordered. "Sensors, full scan." "I want to know everything." Dr. Chen stood next to him, watching the battle unfold on the main screen. The Council ships moved in perfect formation. They fired energy beams in coordinated volleys. When the Catharn advanced, the Council ships retreated to prepared positions. Everything was precise, organized, predictable. "They fight like they're following a textbook," Webb muttered. "Maybe they are," Dr. Chen replied. "Look at how coordinated they are. Every ship knows exactly what to do." The Catharn were different. They moved like a swarm of insects, surrounding Council ships and tearing them apart. When energy beams hit them, their crystalline hulls absorbed the energy. After a few hits, the beam stopped working entirely. The Catharn had adapted. The Council switched to kinetic weapons. Solid metal rounds fired at incredible speeds. These worked better, shattering crystal hulls. But after an hour, the Catharn hulls began changing. They became denser, harder. The rounds bounced off or stuck in the crystal like arrows in armor. "They're learning," Dr. Chen said. "During the battle, they're actually evolving. Webb watched for exactly 7 minutes. He studied the Catharn attack patterns. He noted how they communicated through flashes of colored light. He watched how they surrounded and overwhelmed superior forces through pure numbers and adaptation. Then he opened the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Webb, we're going in." The bridge crew turned to stare at him. "Sir," his first officer said carefully, "we don't have clearance to engage. We don't know friend from foe. We haven't even announced ourselves." "That station down there is about to fall," Webb said flatly. "See that section on the left? It's venting atmosphere. The shields are failing. The Catharn will breach it in 15 minutes. Everyone inside will die. We didn't come all this way to watch." He turned to communications. "Send this on all frequencies, human fleet arriving. Stay clear. That's it. 3 seconds of warning." "Sir, that's not proper protocol. There is no protocol for this," Webb interrupted. "Weapons free. All ships pick your targets. No formation flying. I want chaos. Make them think we're 50 different fleets that don't talk to each other." The human fleet scattered. 50 ships broke in 50 different directions. Some dove toward the planet. Others climbed above the battle plane. A few headed straight for the Catharn cluster. On the Council flagship, alarms began screaming. Admiral Keshna of the Sivrine Defense Fleet stared at his sensors in confusion. "What are those ships doing?" he demanded. "They have no coordination. No formation. Are they malfunctioning?" His tactical officer looked terrified. "Sir, I think those are the humans." The first human ship, a destroyer called the Tufts Defiant, flew straight at a Catharn cluster. The Catharn turned to meet it, light flashing between them as they communicated. They had already adapted to Council weapons. These newcomers would be easy prey. The Defiant opened fire with everything. Nuclear missiles, kinetic cannons, laser batteries, chemical explosives. The weapons were primitive compared to Council technology, but the variety was overwhelming. The Catharn tried to adapt, but each weapon required different adaptations. Crystal hulls that stopped kinetic rounds shattered under nuclear fire. Hulls that absorbed energy couldn't handle the shockwave from chemical explosives. Then the Defiant did something no Council ship had ever done. It rammed a Catharn cruiser at full speed. The bridge of the Council flagship fell silent as they watched the collision. Both ships exploded. The shockwave destroyed 2 more Catharn vessels. "They sacrificed themselves," Admiral Keshna whispered. "On purpose, sir," the tactical officer said in a shaking voice. "The other human ships are doing the same thing. Look, across the battlefield, human ships fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They didn't retreat when damaged. They accelerated toward the enemy. One frigate vented all its atmosphere in a single blast, freezing a cluster of Catharn ships. Another overloaded its shields deliberately, creating an electromagnetic pulse that disabled Catharn communications. A human pilot named Chen Wei sang opera over the open channel while dodging Catharn fire. The strange sounds confused the Catharn coordination. They hesitated for just a moment. That moment was enough for 3 other human ships to destroy them. The Tufts Resolution, Webb's flagship, flew through the thickest part of the Catharn swarm. It launched drones that didn't fire weapons. Instead, they broadcast random signals. Nonsense data. Gibberish. The Catharn tried to intercept and decode the signals, wasting processing power on meaningless noise. "Target their communication nodes," Webb ordered. "I want them deaf and blind." Human weapons focused on the glowing spots where Catharn ships flashed light signals to each other. When those nodes shattered, the Catharn coordination broke down. Individual ships began making mistakes, crashing into each other or firing at empty space. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the Catharn retreated. It was the first time in 2 years that they had been driven off without destroying their target first. The Council station survived. But the cost was high. 20 of the 50 human ships were destroyed. Another 15 were badly damaged. The human fleet had lost 40% of its forces in a single battle. Admiral Keshna sent a message requesting permission to board the human flagship. Webb agreed. When the airlock opened, Velnara stepped through with the Admiral. She was the one who had convinced the Council to call for help. Now she would meet the humans face to face. Commander Webb waited in the docking bay. He was not tall. His hair was gray. He looked tired. But his eyes were hard and calculating. Velnara approached him carefully. She had studied human body language. She extended her hand the way humans did. Webb shook it firmly. You're the one who called us. I am, Velnara replied. Thank you for coming. You saved thousands of lives today. We lost 20 ships saving them, Webb said bluntly. 200 of my people are dead, so let's skip the gratitude and get to the truth. He pulled up a holographic display showing the battle. Your people fight with coordination and tactics. You follow rules of engagement. You have protocols. That's all fine when you're fighting someone who follows the same rules. But the Catharn don't have rules. They just have adaptation and numbers. Webb zoomed in on a council ship retreating in perfect formation. You treat war like a game with points and strategies. We treat it like survival. You want to win cleanly. We just want to win. Velnara felt a chill run through her. What are you saying? Webb's expression was grim. You didn't call us here to save you. Not really. You called us here to do what you can't. You need someone willing to be brutal, someone willing to sacrifice, someone willing to do terrible things to win. He paused. You called us here to be monsters for you. The silence stretched out. Admiral Keshna looked uncomfortable. Velnara met Webb's eyes steadily. Yes, she said finally. That is exactly why we called you. Webb nodded slowly. Good. At least you're honest. Show me the full war map. Show me every Catharn position. Show me everything you've tried and everything that failed. Why? Admiral Keshna asked. Because, Webb said, you're about to learn how Earth fights, and I guarantee you won't like it. But you'll survive it. He turned to Dr. Chen. Get me everything they have on Catharn biology, psychology, communication, and tactics. I want to know how they think. What are you planning? Velnara asked. Webb smiled, but there was no humor in it. Give me 2 weeks. Then I'll show you what 3,000 years of human warfare has taught us. I'll show you what it means to fight without rules, and I'll show you why you were right to fear us. Commander Webb spent 2 weeks studying everything the Council had on the Catharn. He read battle reports. He watched recordings of every engagement. He studied Catharn biology and communication patterns. Dr. Chen worked beside him, barely sleeping. On day 3, Webb called a meeting with all surviving human ship captains. 30 captains gathered in the Resolution's briefing room. They looked tired but determined. The Council fights like they're playing chess, Webb began. Coordinated moves, strategic positions, predictable patterns. The Catharn adapt to patterns in hours, so we won't give them patterns. He brought up a new tactical display. From now on, we split into wolf packs. Groups of 3 to 5 ships. Each pack operates independently. No overall coordination. Each captain makes their own decisions. Captain Rodriguez of the 2F's Havoc raised her hand. Sir, that's chaos. How do we support each other? We don't, Webb said flatly. That's the point. The Catharn adapt by observing patterns across the battlefield. If there's no pattern, they can't adapt. Each pack will fight differently. Use different tactics, different weapons, different timing. By the time they adapt to one pack, they'll face a completely different approach from another. Admiral Keshna, who was observing the meeting, stood up in alarm. This is insane. You'll be wiped out piecemeal. Maybe, Webb agreed. Or maybe the Catharn will waste all their energy adapting to 30 different fighting styles instead of one. Chaos is a weapon. Let's use it. The first test came in the Velos system. A Catharn fleet was besieging a Council colony. Webb sent in 6 wolf packs from different directions. Pack Alpha, led by Captain Martinez, approached head-on while broadcasting children's songs from Earth. The Catharn had never heard anything like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, sung by human children. They tried to decode it, searching for hidden military codes. There were none. It was just a song. Pack Beta came from below the orbital plane, their ships flying backward. The Catharn assumed the ships were retreating and ignored them. When Pack Beta opened fire from behind, the Catharn scrambled to adapt. Pack Gamma did something no sane captain would order. They fired their weapons at random intervals and random targets. Sometimes they hit Catharn ships. Sometimes they hit empty space. Sometimes they hit asteroids just to watch them explode. The Catharn tried to predict the pattern. There was no pattern. While the Catharn focused on adapting to these bizarre tactics, Pack Delta slipped past them and evacuated the colony below. By the time the Catharn realized what happened, 50,000 civilians were safe. The Catharn advance stopped for the first time in 2 years. Word spread across Council space. The humans were winning. But the reports that came back disturbed many Council species. In the Karth system, Captain Zhang's pack used psychological warfare. They broadcast horror movie soundtracks during battle. The screaming and eerie music meant nothing to the Catharn, but it disrupted their light-based communication. The flashing colors they used to coordinate got mixed up with the sound frequencies. In the Thelos cluster, Captain Okonkwo's pack pretended to surrender. They powered down their weapons and sent a surrender signal. When the Catharn moved in to capture the ships, the humans detonated their reactors. 3 human ships destroyed in exchange for 15 Catharn vessels. Dr. Chen made a breakthrough on day 9. She was studying Catharn communication patterns when she noticed something strange. "They're too logical," she told Webb. "The Catharn adapt to threats by analyzing patterns. They use pure logic. They expect every action to have a rational purpose, and so?" Webb asked. "So what happens when we do things that have no purpose? Actions that make no sense? The Catharn would waste processing power trying to find meaning where there isn't any." Webb smiled. It was the first real smile he'd had in weeks. Absurdity as a weapon. "I like it." He sent out new orders to all wolf packs. Make no sense. Do things that have no tactical value. Confuse them. Make them question reality itself. The results were immediate. Human ships began doing things that defied explanation. Captain Singh's pack flew in figure 8 patterns while firing colored flares. No tactical value. No purpose. The Catharn tried to understand why. They couldn't. Captain O'Brien's pack broadcast recipes for Earth food. The instructions for making pasta carbonara confused Catharn analysis systems for hours. Captain Liu's pack painted their ships with random colors mid-battle. Bright pink, neon green, polka dots. The Catharn had never encountered camouflage that made ships more visible. The wolf pack called Madness did the most insane thing of all. They flew straight at a Catharn fleet while broadcasting every human language at once. 50 different languages all talking over each other. Chinese, Arabic, Spanish, Swahili. The Catharn communication network crashed trying to process it all. For 2 weeks, the human wolf pack spread chaos across 3 star systems. The Catharn advance didn't just slow. It stopped completely. For the first time, Catharn ships began retreating, but there was a cost. Another 8 human ships were destroyed. The fleet that had started with 50 now had only 22 combat-capable vessels. The Council watched in horror and awe. They recorded everything. Admiral Keshna filed reports that his superiors couldn't believe. The humans rammed a Catharn cruiser while screaming, one report said. The humans broadcast something called death metal music that disrupted Catharn coordination, another reported. The humans detonated nuclear weapons inside their own cargo bays to increase the explosion radius. A third report stated. Velnara read every report. She attended every debriefing. She watched the humans celebrate their victories with strange rituals involving alcohol and loud music. She saw them mourn their dead with tears and silence. They were so alien, yet so familiar. On day 14, she found Dr. Chen alone in an observation deck, looking at the stars. "Your people are winning," Velnara said softly. "We're surviving," Dr. Chen corrected. "That's not the same thing. The Catharn fear you now. They flee from your ships. That has never happened before." Dr. Chen turned to face her. "Do you know what we call this? We call it being cornered. When humans are cornered, when we're desperate, we become dangerous. Not because we're strong, because we stop caring about survival and start caring only about taking the enemy down with us." "Is that why you were quarantined?" "Probably," Dr. Chen admitted. "We're a young species. We still remember what it's like to fight for survival every single day. You've had peace for 3,000 years. You forgot what real war looks like. We never had the chance to forget." Velnara was quiet for a moment. "There's a faction in the Council. They're already drafting a resolution to re-quarantine humanity as soon as this war ends." Dr. Chen laughed bitterly. "Of course they are. We're useful when you need monsters. But when the monsters save you, you remember why you were afraid of them in the first place." "For what it's worth," Velnara said, "I will vote against it." "Thank you," Dr. Chen replied. "But we both know how that vote will go." On the bridge of the resolution, Commander Webb was planning the final assault. Intelligence had located the Catharn central nexus. It was the heart of their hive mind, the core that coordinated all Catharn forces across multiple star systems. "It's in the Karath cluster," Webb told his remaining captains. 3 stars surrounded by Catharn megastructures. The Nexus is at the center, protected by thousands of ships. What are our chances? Captain Rodriguez asked. Webb didn't lie. We'll need a 90% casualty rate minimum. Most of us won't make it back. The room fell silent. 22 captains looked at each other. They were tired, scared, far from home. Some of them had families waiting on Earth. Others had left behind loved ones. All of them knew this might be a one-way trip. Captain Martinez stood up. Let's vote. Who's willing to go? 22 hands went up. Every single one. Webb felt his throat tighten with emotion. All right then. We leave in 6 hours. Get your crews ready. Tell them the truth. Anyone who wants to stay behind can. No shame in it. 6 hours later, all 22 ships were ready. Not a single crew member had chosen to stay behind. The human fleet jumped to the Karath cluster, ready for the final battle. Behind them, the Council fleet followed at a careful distance, unwilling to abandon the humans but unable to match their courage. The war was about to end. One way or another. The Karath cluster was beautiful and terrifying. 3 stars orbited each other in a cosmic dance, their light painting space in shades of gold and amber. Around them floated structures that defied description, crystal megastructures the size of moons, platforms that harvested energy directly from the stars, thousands upon thousands of Catharn ships moving in perfect synchronization. At the center of it all was the Nexus, a massive crystalline sphere that pulsed with inner light. Every Catharn in the galaxy was connected to it, receiving orders and sharing information instantly. Commander Webb stood on the bridge of the Resolution, watching his sensors count the enemy. The numbers kept climbing. 5,000 ships. 10,000. 20,000 were going to die here, his first officer said quietly. Probably, Webb agreed. But we're taking them with us. Behind the human fleet, 300 council ships had followed. Admiral Keshina had convinced them to come, though many were reluctant. Now they hung back, unwilling to commit to what looked like a suicide mission. Council fleet is requesting orders, the communications officer reported. Webb opened the channel. Admiral, stay back. Protect the retreat route. When survivors come through, cover them. When survivors come through, Admiral Keshina repeated. You expect survivors? I expect someone to tell the story, Webb replied. Make sure it's told right. He cut the channel and turned to Dr. Chen. Is it ready? She nodded, her hands shaking. The neural virus is loaded into our communication arrays. It's based on human creativity. Random thoughts, dreams, nonsense, things that make no logical sense. When we broadcast it, the Catharn hive mind will try to process it. It might overwhelm their ability to coordinate. Might? Webb asked. I've never tested it on a target this large, Dr. Chen admitted. It could work. Or it could do nothing. Or it could make things worse. Good enough odds for me, Webb said. He opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Webb, final checks. Everyone ready? 21 voices answered affirmatively. 21 ships full of people who knew they were probably going to die. When we were kids, Webb said softly, they taught us about heroes, people who sacrificed everything to save others. I never thought I'd be one of those stories. I'm just a soldier. But today we're going to do something heroic. We're going to save an entire galaxy, and even if no one on Earth ever knows our names, we'll know. That's enough. He took a deep breath. All ships attack pattern chaos. No coordination. Maximum confusion. And may whatever gods exist forgive us for what we're about to do. The human fleet charged forward. The Catharn responded instantly. Thousands of crystal ships moved to intercept. Light flashed between them as they coordinated their defense. They had adapted to human tactics over the past weeks. They were ready, but the humans weren't using tactics anymore. They were using desperation. The Tough's Havoc, Captain Rodriguez commanding, fired every weapon at once in random directions. She hit Catharn ships. She hit the megastructures. She hit empty space. The Catharn tried to predict her next target. They couldn't. The Tough Storm, Captain Martinez commanding, flew straight up, perpendicular to the orbital plane. He reached the apex of his climb, flipped his ship and dove straight down toward the Nexus at full speed. Catharn ships tried to intercept. He rammed through them, his shields screaming as they failed. The Tough's Dragon, Captain Liu commanding, broadcast human lullabies. Soft songs that mothers sang to their children. Hush, little baby, echoed across space as her ship fired nuclear missiles. Dr. Chen activated the neural virus. It broadcast from every human ship simultaneously. Chaotic human thoughts flooded Catharn communication channels, random memories. A child's first day of school, the taste of coffee, the feeling of rain, dreams about flying, nightmares about falling, poetry, music, love, fear, joy, sadness. The entire spectrum of human emotion and imagination poured into the Catharn hive mind. The effect was immediate. Catharn ships began moving erratically. Some fired at their own kind. Others spun in circles. The Nexus pulsed wildly, trying to process information that made no sense. How do you adapt to a memory of someone's grandmother baking cookies? How do you defend against the feeling of sunset on a warm day? The Catharn coordination broke down completely. Individual ships began making decisions without consulting the Nexus. But they were never designed to think independently. They crashed into each other. They fired at allies. They fled in random directions. It's working, Dr. Chen shouted over the chaos of the battle. The virus is overwhelming them. But the cost was devastating. The tough storm exploded under concentrated fire. Captain Martinez and his crew of 47 died instantly. The Tough's Liberty took a direct hit to its reactor. The ship split in half. 32 dead. The Tough's Courage rammed a Catharn megastructure, bringing it down but destroying itself in the process. 51 dead. Webb watched his fleet die one ship at a time. Each loss felt like a knife to the heart. These were people he knew. People who had trusted him. People who had families waiting on Earth. Sir, his tactical officer said urgently, the Nexus is still operational. The virus is disrupting it, but not destroying it. We need more. Webb looked at his display. 10 human ships remained. The Nexus pulsed at the center of the cluster. Damaged but functional. If it survived, the Catharn would recover. Everything would have been for nothing. He made his decision. All ships, this is Webb. Get clear of the Nexus now. Sir? Captain Rodriguez's voice came through. What are you doing? Finishing this, Webb replied. He turned to his crew. Everyone to the escape pods. That's an order. His first officer grabbed his arm. Commander, no. There has to be another way. There isn't, Webb said firmly. The Resolution is the biggest ship we have. If I ram the Nexus at full speed, the impact will shatter it. But I need everyone off first. You have 2 minutes. Dr. Chen refused to leave. I'm staying. Someone needs to keep broadcasting the virus until the last moment. Webb wanted to argue. Instead, he hugged her. Thank you. For everything. The crew evacuated. Webb and Dr. Chen stood alone on the bridge, watching the Nexus grow larger on the screen. The Resolution accelerated toward it, engines screaming. Do you think they'll remember us? Dr. Chen asked. Does it matter? Webb replied. We did what we came to do. Behind them, Captain Rodriguez in the Tough's Havoc saw what Webb was planning. She opened a channel to the remaining 9 ships. You see that? Webb's going to ram the Nexus. Let's make sure he gets there. The 9 remaining human ships formed a protective screen around the Resolution. They intercepted Catharn ships that tried to stop Webb. They sacrificed themselves one by one to clear a path. The Tough's Defiant, piloted by Captain Singh, took a direct hit meant for the Resolution. She died saving Webb's ship. The TUF's Thunder blocked 3 Catharn cruisers, its crew of 63 fighting until the ship exploded. One by one, the human fleet died protecting their commander's final charge. Webb and Dr. Chen watched the Nexus fill their entire view screen. At the last moment, Dr. Chen activated the neural virus at maximum power. Every memory, every thought, every dream and fear and hope. The entire human experience poured into the Catharn hive mind in one overwhelming flood. The Resolution hit the Nexus at relativistic speed. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The Nexus shattered into a billion crystalline fragments. The shockwave destroyed every Catharn ship within a light second. The 3 stars flickered as the energy from the explosion washed over them. Without the Nexus, the Catharn across the galaxy went silent. Ships stopped moving. They floated in space, no longer receiving orders. No longer part of a greater whole. They were individuals now, and they had never been designed to be individuals. The Catharn swarm collapsed. Admiral Keshna watched from the Council flagship, tears streaming down his face. Velnara stood beside him, unable to speak. They won, the Admiral whispered. They saved us all. Only 7 human ships survived. The Tough's Havoc, Captain Rodriguez commanding, was the senior ship now. She gathered the survivors and began the journey back to Council space. Behind them, the Karath cluster burned. The Nexus was gone. The Catharn were broken. The galaxy was saved. But 50 ships had left Earth. 7 returned. The Council held an emergency session. The vote was called immediately. Resolution 7741, the re-quarantine of humanity. Velnara stood to speak against it. They saved us. They gave everything. And now you want to lock them away again? Because of what they are, another ambassador replied. They are too dangerous, too willing to die, too creative in destruction. We cannot coexist with them. The vote was 673 in favor, 189 against. Captain Rodriguez was called before the council to receive the news. She stood alone, still wearing her damaged combat suit. Her ship and crew were all that remained of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We thank you for your service, the council speaker said formally. You have saved the galaxy. But by council resolution, humanity must return to Sol. The quarantine will be reinstated. Rodriguez looked at them for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was a bitter, exhausted sound. You called us monsters. You asked us to save you. We lost 43 ships, over 2,000 people. 2,000 humans who will never see Earth again, who died in your war for your people. She shook her head. And now you're afraid of us again? We are grateful, the speaker began. Keep your gratitude, Rodriguez interrupted. You were right to fear us. We scare ourselves sometimes. But remember this. You broke the quarantine once. If you're ever desperate enough to call us again, think carefully, because next time we might not answer. She turned and walked out of the chamber. The 7 surviving ships jumped back to Earth. The quarantine field reactivated behind them, sealing Sol off from the galaxy once more. On Earth, the returning crews were hailed as heroes. Parades were held. Monuments were built. The names of the dead were carved in stone so they would never be forgotten. Commander Marcus Webb, Dr. Sarah Chen, Captain Martinez, Captain Singh, Captain Liu, over 2,000 names, heroes who gave everything to save people they had never met. But Earth had changed. Humanity had seen the stars. They had fought a galactic war. They had won. And they knew they were locked away like a dangerous animal in a cage. On the bridge of the Tufts Havoc, Captain Rodriguez looked at Earth from orbit. The planet was beautiful, blue and green and safe, but also a prison. They're afraid of what will become out there, she said to her first officer. Maybe they should be afraid of what will become trapped in here. In deep space, in the ruins of the Karath cluster, something stirred. A single Catharn fragment, damaged but alive, began rebuilding. It was small, weak, but it was learning from its defeat. It was adapting. The war was over, but the story of humanity and the galaxy was just beginning.